Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt stressed, worried, freaked out, or burdened with concerns you just can't let go of, or if you feel like a saber-tooth's about to jump out and get you, and there's nowhere to hide, then do we have the Destressifying show for you. Today we'll be talking with Davidji, a true expert in the field of stress management and author of The Secrets of Meditation and his best-selling book, Destressifying, the real-world guide to personal empowerment, lasting fulfillment, and peace of mind. Today we'll talk about de-stressifying your life, getting you out of fight or flight, or the I'm about to be eaten by a tiger mode, and help you discover a path of de-stress, greater ease, and far more peace, no matter what you're doing. That plus de-stressifying at work, on the phone, on an airplane, and even before the TSA. Well, welcome to the show, Davidji. Are you ready to shine?
Shine on. Absolutely.
Woohoo! So before we dive into things, there's a really pressing question that came up. I'm almost afraid to get the answer to from your second book. Why didn't you buy your dream home in New Jersey?
Well, that's interesting. I actually ended up buying another home, and I ended up leaving that and moving to California. So it's a deep lesson in attachment. But you clearly did read my first book, because that was one of the stories in there about attachment and how our lives can really shift from one realm to another, and we think we're in control. But we have to realize we're sitting in the passenger seat with the universe at the wheel.
Amen. And the sooner we get that, the less 2x4s or 2x2s we may get.
Right.
So going from there and talking about transformation, let's go back in time a little bit. Maybe we go back to 9/11 or what your life was like just before that.
Right. Just before 9/11. Well, let me just go back a little bit before that, because I had started meditating when I was in college, and I had started really connecting to some ancient wisdom traditions. And some of them lasted for weeks, some of them lasted for years. My very, very first one was an experimental Asian studies course when I was in college. And there were 12 of us. We sat in a circle. Mm-hmm. Our Zen master stood in the corner. We were instructed when we meditated to raise our hand when we had a thought. In his hand, he carried an 18-inch
oh no, I see it coming.
bamboo stick, a saku. And when we raised our hand, he would come over and thwack us on the back. And so I only lasted in that school of meditation a couple of weeks. When you find yourself lying to your Zen master, it's time to move on, because I would not raise my hand. And over the years, I dabbled in different types of meditations, and I also got deeper and deeper into the corporate world. And at the point I realized I'd gotten so deep that I had let go of my meditation practice. I had replaced my 4 a.m. early morning meditation for a 5 a.m. train ride into the World Trade Center, and I had replaced my evening meditation with a double scotch. And like that, it was gone. I found myself multitasking at every single level that I could possibly do. I sat at my desk during lunch and typed and listened and had about 10 different things going on. And I was feeling very, very unfulfilled. And in the wake of 9/11, I was walking in Soho, southern Manhattan, past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in. And as I passed this particular cardboard box, a hand reached out, grabbed my pant leg, a face peeked at me, and this voice said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And it's a fairly reflective moment under any circumstances. But
that's an understatement, and you described his eyes in the book, and this was like looking into the face of God.
Absolutely. There are so many messengers out there that we're not aware of. And only after the fact do we go, whoa, where did that cosmic message possibly come from? And so I think that's a good reminder for all of us. There's something out there in every leaf that's blowing in the wind, and every single bird that's flying ahead. In every single moment, there's an aha moment. And we can either pay attention to it, or we can just walk right on by and have it not even connect to us. But I took that to heart. And I came home that night and I told this to my wife, and she said to me, "Wow, you should probably quit your job. And there's this guy, Deepak Chopra. He's holding a meditation retreat in Oxford, England. You should go and do that thing."
Where did that come from? For her,
she actually, the day before, had been in a supermarket. She bumped into one of my yoga teachers at the time, and she had told this teacher that I was, multitasking and struggling and feeling unfulfilled, and that I wasn't really getting the true excitement and thrill out of life that I once did. And this yoga teacher said, "Oh, well, Deepak's a friend of mine. You should check that out." And she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to Oxford, England, so he should come with me." So I don't know if she was actually trying to pitch a sale or if she was truly, looking to help me move to a higher level. But it was a fairly powerful conversation, enough so that I followed that lead. I did quit my job, and then I headed off to Oxford to hang out with Deepak for a week. I had never even heard of Deepak Chopra. So, but it was an instant love connection, and it was a beautiful experience. And because it was in the wake of 9/11, instead of there being, 500 people at this event, there were less than 50. And most of them were Europeans, because we weren't flying a lot here shortly after 9/11. And it just gave me such a powerful guide and a powerful insight into where my life could come back to. And I had gone to this experience with such darkness in my heart and such pain, emotional pain from the events that had previously happened over the past weeks and months before that. And it was like my heart was a white linen cloth that had been just dipped in black India ink. But each day that I meditated and each day that I connected more with Source, I got lighter. And that linen cloth that was like being draped in a rushing stream just got cleansed and cleansed and cleansed. And that's really when I truly experienced the power that a meditation practice could have on all those thoughts that we have and all those grievances and sadnesses and regrets that hold us back from really shining and being the most inspired that we can be. And so when that retreat was over, I said to Deepak, I need to find out more. I need to search for the guru. And he said, "Well, go to India. That's where everyone goes to search for the guru." And so I'm very obedient, obviously, and got on, headed right to India. And that was really where I realized, after traveling high and low and in search of the guru, that the guru rests inside.
Amen.
That the answer to every single question we could ever ask ourselves actually rests within. We just have to quiet ourselves down enough so that we can truly hear the whispers of God coming through us, the whispers that are in our heart.
I love how quickly, when you describe in your first book, how quickly, it's only like 4 days in, 4 days, of course, sitting 5 hours a day, but still, it's only 4 days in before that shift starts to occur.
Yes.
Which means it's attainable for anybody, that sense of, or that connection. We can all get that.
We can all get that. And I think that's one of the things that prevents people from truly, cultivating or diving into a meditation practice, is that they see the image of the guru who's been meditating 8 hours a day for 20 years or 40 years. And they go, I don't have time for that. I have to, I have a meeting in 10 minutes. And so I believe that we can attain that. And science is now proving, even just in one sitting, we know that there are ripples to lowering your blood pressure. We know that we can be a little less reactive and a little more responsive to the world around us. And so I think that if people just are willing to try it, just dip their toe into that water, they'll start to see those results very, very quickly.
Beautiful. So let's go from there. We'll kind of fast forward, and we'll talk about Destressifying, of which meditation is a big component in there. And I think to do that, we may need to start with stress. And so I like to focus on the positives. So can stress be good for us? Absolutely.
When I first proposed the book to Hay House, I said, I'm thinking of writing this book on stress, and pretty much, this is it. Stress is bad, and here are the ways to combat it. I used the word combat it.
I like that, since you start the book talking with Marines. So perfect.
Right. And then I said, well, let me dive in and start exploring all the research. And I really spent probably 6 months just researching and reading white papers and researching the most current trends. And suddenly I realized, oh, it's not just this stress is bad and here's the solution. It's that stress is in the eye of the beholder. And so if we can see moments as challenges rather than threats, that saber-toothed tiger is not suddenly coming at us, but suddenly there's an opportunity. And when we see opportunities, that actually leads to growth prospects. And so there's even the newest science even says it's not just all about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a whole nother aspect that can come from stress. And as long as it's short-lived, has a very finite beginning and end point, we believe that we will grow from the experience, and we see it as a challenge rather than a threat. There's growth that can come. So science is now proving neurons grow, wounds heal more quickly, our bodies start to enliven, and what doesn't kill us truly can make us stronger. And so upon finding this, it was like, wait, time out. I need to write a whole nother book. Because we can master these aspects of our life that otherwise would have smacked us down with that 2x4. And instead, we can say, wow, here's an opportunity for me to grow, to thrive, to heal, and to take my life to the next level. So stress can be very, very positive. The scientific term for good stress is eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, versus distress. And it's a choice. It's actually a choice. You can have a diagnosis of cancer from a doctor, and you can, in that moment, view that as the most devastating piece of news you've ever heard, and that's the end. Or you can take that as a sign from the universe, and it's now proven that people who go through diagnoses start to pull those people around them even more closely, start to appreciate things more in their lives, start to elevate gratitude. I know that you've interviewed Mark Nepo, and he's like the perfect example of someone who's, taken that message not once, but twice, and then taken his life to the next level. So science is now confirming what we innately know inside of us anyway.
It sounds like we need to do a couple things. We need to rewire, in essence, or reframe, and we need to be able to let go. For instance, you talk about in the book Eureka hormone and Daniela Kirby and rats, and that by just giving them stress for a very short period of time, the key being short, they became like super rats.
Right. So we can see a stressful moment and go, focused. Or we can see multiple stressful moments and say, it's too much. I can't take anymore.
Overwhelmed.
And so if we can seize that moment, it's carpe diem. If we can seize that moment and say, here's this moment, let me zone in, let me truly connect to what's a solution, what's a way for me to transcend this, to move beyond it. One door closed, how many more are there to open?
So what is, you use a term that you call the book, Destressifying. That's I've never heard that word before. What?
I was sitting around one day, and a friend of mine, was talking to me about that they were so stressed out, and I was like, dude, you need to de-stressify. And I was like, that's it. It doesn't exist. I'll create this word. It's now, pretty popular. I don't know if it gets entered into Webster's dictionary, but de-stressifying is not just the title of a book. It's a process. We can live de-stressifying lives, taking moments and transmuting them. And that's really what de-stressifying is. It's taking that moment that the universe serves up to you and saying, how do I take this moment and take my life to the next level? And I believe that if we can get really clear on this concept of awareness, because I believe everything starts with awareness. If we can just settle down in a given moment and truly receive information, not from some fight-flight response or some emotional wave that hits us, but if we can respond to life rather than to react, if we can be more reflective instead of reflexive, then we can make more conscious choices. And our lives are all about conscious choice making.
So let's dive into that, because you're sitting at work and you think there's no saber-tooth tiger around, and then all of a sudden you get an email from the saber-tooth saying we need to talk.
Right. Well, this all comes down to this concept of the present moment. We know that the 2009 winner of the Nobel Prize in Medicine, Elizabeth Blackburn, she discovered this concept called telomeres. They're these fringes that hang off of our chromosomes, which every single cell then gets embedded with. Yep. And if the fringes are long and lubricated, they're called telomeres. If they're long and lubricated, that means that every cell will regenerate with a healthy trajectory. And if they're short and dry and craggy and not covered with that lubricant known as telomerase, she discovered all of this, then the cellular development is going to be constricted, and this is how we get sick, and this is how stress impacts us negatively.
I have a strange way to describe it. I think of it as a match, and even with the telomerase as the top of the match. And if the match is gone, you gone.
That's it. That's it. Perfect. So she discovers this telomerase, which is like the nectar of life. Ponce de Leon should have seized this and done something with it, the fountain of youth. And of course, everyone said to her, "Where's telomerase developed in the body, and how can we harvest it? And how is it developed? Why is it developed?" And she said, "I have no clue where it's developed, and I have no clue how it's developed. But all of my studies show that it happens when we can introduce some type of pattern interrupt, a break in our default mechanism," is how she called it. And so we're in activity from the moment we come out of the womb until the moment we take our last breath. And these opportunities that we have to just stop and get still and silent, doesn't even have to be in a meditation, just introducing a pattern interrupt, taking a breath, actually is how she believes they're created. And she even said, "I know of no other tool to do that other than mindfulness." So that was 7 years ago. And here we are, 7 years later, and now mindfulness is a little trendy right now. It's the euphemism for meditation, because meditation can sound a little culty and scary, but mindfulness is so loving and sweet. And so we're now knowing that by introducing pattern interrupts into our day, into our life, into every single thought or word or action, whether we do this proactively or whether we do this intentionally or whether it just happens to us, we actually become more creative. That break, that breath that our brain is being given allows it to be more creative, more intuitive, allows us to heal at a higher level, allows us to really be clear and then power through. So if we can positively introduce proactive pattern interrupts into our life, we'll be more creative, we'll be more intuitive, we'll be happier beings.
Joe Montana. I love the example that you give of it's not exactly mindfulness, but it is a complete and total mind stopper.
Right. That's, Joe Montana with 2 minutes left. The team is freaking out. They're going to lose the Super Bowl. They don't know what to do. And suddenly he goes, "Hey, isn't that John Candy in the stands over there?" And then suddenly, boom, everyone suddenly looks, giggles, and no one was thinking about the past or the future. No one was thinking about the past. "Oh, this can't be done because it's never been done." And no one was thinking about the future. "There's less than 2 minutes on the clock. We will definitely lose." They were all fully present. And when we do that, whether we're going out on a date, whether we're about to have a very, very intense meeting because the phone rang and the saber-tooth tiger says, "We need to talk," or whatever that moment is, we can suddenly connect to the present moment. And in the present moment, we know that telomerase is being created, but aside from that, in that present moment, there's no fear, there's no grief, there's no anxiety, and there's no stress.
So maybe you can share with us a simple way. I know there's the squeeze and release, there's 16 seconds, a way that we can the wave of adrenaline has come over us. We've got this sense of shakiness going on, and we're not quite sure how we reground. How do we how do we throw a wrench in the wheel real quick? I'm not sure that's a great example.
In Britain, they refer to that as there's a spanner in the works. Throwing a spanner into the. So it's the way I've taught this to Marines, I've taught this to law enforcement, I've taught this to Dutch special forces. It's a way, and now it's integrated into their process. I call it 16 seconds. In the military now, they call it tactical breathing. But and because I never refer to it as a meditation tool, it's always an awareness tool. But we can do this, and I think if everyone does this, the moment you do it, you realize, oh, it actually has the power. And so the way it starts is if we can just think about something that's been disturbing us or irritating us for the past several days, or even a week. Don't go too deep. It's not therapy. So just something that has created some discomfort or annoyance. Maybe someone said they were going to do something and they didn't, or they weren't supposed to do something and they did, or maybe you can even see their eyes. You can see the face of that person that you've just been, they're so irritating to me. And now close your eyes and through your nostrils, take a long, slow, deep breath in and watch that breath as it moves down into your belly. And when it gets there, hold it there and just watch it and just witness it. And now observe that breath as it moves up your chest, out through your nostrils again. And at the end of that breath, hold it out and continue to witness it and continue to watch it. And now open your eyes and breathe normally. And that was 16 seconds. And in those 16 seconds, if you were playing along, and I know you were, Michael, and hopefully everybody participating with us was playing along. In those 16 seconds, if you were playing along, you were not in the past, you were not in the future. In fact, if you were playing along, you weren't even thinking about the irritant or the irritation or the discomfort. That's the present.
Where am I now?
So that's only 16 seconds. And in those 16 seconds, we weren't thinking about fear or anger or anxiety or I'm going to teach that person a lesson or how dare they. None of that. And so that's the power of the present moment. And we weren't in denial. We just shifted our attention. Everything in life is about attention and intention. And in those 16 seconds, our attention was on our breath, and our intention was pretty much just to surrender. And so if you do that 4 times, it's a minute. Do it 20 times, it's 5 minutes. And we have the ability throughout the day, what that just did was it stopped the surge of adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon. It slowed our breathing. It slowed our heart rate. It slowed our pulse. It lowered our blood pressure. And it made us just a little less reactive. Now, you may still be pissed off at that person. You may still be angry at them. But probably in this moment, maybe you have a little less emotional charge. And that's the power of just putting some space between this moment and what we think is going to happen or what we think we're going to do in the next.
That can be really powerful for making strategic decisions. It's always small decisions or a few decisions that make the biggest difference in our lives and our careers and our investments. And we're emotional beings. And so they tend to be charged. And like you're saying, if we can get some space, get a foot in the door before we say something or do something, that can be huge.
Absolutely. And if we think we are these logical beings, we're buying a car because we've analyzed the miles per gallon and, but we're really seeing, how am I going to look sitting behind that wheel? We think we're buying a stock because based on our analysis, the PE and the past performance and all this other stuff is going to do it. It's like, no, I want to own Apple. So many of the choices that we make, we think we're making from this very, very stoic or logical standpoint, and we're actually making almost every single decision coming from some type of emotional decision-making process. And this just allows us to go and not have the emotional charge or the emotional turbulence to ultimately pull the trigger on that choice. It allows us to be more forgiving of the moment. It allows us to be a little more compassionate. And I believe that all of our compassion externally and our forgiveness to others has to start with self-forgiveness and self-compassion. And this just gives us a little grounding in the moment. And chemically, we're a different person than we were prior to that 16-second exercise.
You talk in the beginning of the book, you talk about working with the military. We're in 165 countries right now, or pretty much all of them. There are a lot of people listening to this that are either in active combat or in countries where there is war. How do we bring pause to people in those situations?
Everyone has 16 seconds. And so you have to start where you are, and we need to start small. We need to, like you said, it's those little decisions that make the biggest impact. Mm-hmm. It's taking those little moments of our day. Everyone on the planet only has 24 hours a day. And yet everyone on the planet at some point has said, I don't have time for that thing, whatever that is. I don't have time to return a call or be nice to somebody or do whatever. But everyone's got 16 seconds. And so whether you're looking down the scope of a rifle, whether you are being surrounded by violence in the world, whether you're just in the middle of observing a kooky political circus that's going on in your country at any given time. Our natural inclination is to respond to the world in a conditioned way. And sometimes that's very, very helpful to do that. If you are in the middle of a war zone, fight flight could save your life. Mm-hmm. If you are in law enforcement or emergency rescue, fight flight is going to help you stay focused and really solve your most basic need, survival. Mm-hmm. But there are all moments in between. And so even if you are in the most violent, scary environment, you need to introduce that pattern interrupt so that your other choices, other than running for the hills, so that your other choices, even whether you should pull the trigger or not, whether you should move to left or right, whether you should stay quiet or whether you should expose yourself, whatever that looks like. If we can just introduce a mini pattern interrupt of 16 seconds or 32 seconds or 48 or 102, whatever that looks like to you, then our next choice will be a little more conscious and it will be a little less conditioned. Because the conditioning that we're bringing isn't the conditioning from when we were 5. It's 10,000 years old of fight flight. And so we bring that into our interactions with other humans. It's not our physical fight flight where we're trying to protect our physiology because there's a saber-tooth tiger that might cut it. Mm-hmm. It's because we're actually trying to protect our ego, our sense of self, from what someone else just said or did, or a belief system that they have that irks us. We have to go back to that. We don't have to agree, and we can be really angry and outraged by things that happen to us, or things people say, or ways that they position themselves. But our response is up to us. And so if we can then choose a conscious, unconditioned response, that allows it to be infinite. There are suddenly 20 different ways I could respond, not just, oh, you made me so mad, so I'm going to bark back at you.
So first we need to get our foot in the door. We need to get that 16, that 32, that 48 in there. And then how do we start to rewire to become more aware so that we don't automatically slip back into that reptilian amygdala response?
Well, to unravel 10,000 years of conditioning that's been flowing through, this physical body of ours and through history, we don't undo 10,000 years in 16 seconds. But
be nice if we could.
Yes. Well, then we could probably just snap all those things away. But we can make a commitment to be more aware. We can make a commitment that, and we can do it. Some people really like a rigid structure. So you can say, throughout the course of the day, every hour on the hour, or every 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, I'm going to stop and breathe for 16 seconds. It's tough. You could put a Post-it note on your computer. or tattoo that onto your arm, but at a certain point you wouldn't even see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can proactively wake up and integrate some type of stillness and silence practice into our life. And I believe that everyone has the ability to do that. Most of us, we wake up, the alarm goes off, we hit the buzzer, we go back to sleep, or we then launch into the day. But instead, I believe that if we could use that as like the signal to say, let me practice 16 seconds here. Let me connect to the stillness and silence inside of me. No differently than we brush our teeth every day. There's no one at the door. Maybe when we were 5 years old or 8 years old, there was someone at the door going, get back in there and brush. But there's no one at the door when we wake up now saying, get back in there and meditate. But if we can connect to any type of stillness and silence process. So that could be waking up and taking a walk in nature. Mm-hmm. That could be waking up and practicing meditation. That could be waking up and dancing wildly or practicing yoga. Something that will bring you into the present moment as a byproduct of what it is.
Not as something that you need to go, need to do, need to be.
Because no one's going to do that anyway. No one's going to wake up and say, I could master the world today. I could conquer all of my constrictions. I could do all these great things. Or I could sit in the dark with my eyes closed and do nothing. Which one shall I choose? But if we can just show up and put ourselves in a place where we are interrupting the pattern of our conditioning, mm-hmm. or we are just showing up to connect to that, and that can be starting the day with a gratitude practice. That can be starting the day by doing a metta meditation and sending love out there, or just a self-forgiveness practice. I like the fact, that we can start with a daily meditation practice, knowing that it's going to bring a little bit of stillness and silence into every word, thought, and deed throughout the course of the day. I love that. But, that's why I say to people, start small. When I'm teaching the military or I'm teaching law enforcement, I say, let's start with 16 seconds a day. Yeah. Just 16 seconds a day. And next week, we'll add a minute to that. So next week, it's a minute and 16 a day. And the next week, we'll add another minute. By the time they get to 26 weeks, halfway through the year, they have a 25-minute meditation practice. Awesome. It's like the boiling frog, which is not the best analogy to think of while you're meditating. But, if you drop a frog in a pot of boiling water, it bounces right out. But if you put a frog in a pot of water and then turn on the heat, it'll just stay there and boil. And so incrementally, that's how I believe people can make substantial change, sea change in their life. No one changes very few people change their life by doing the giant change. It's those little incremental steps we take. Bean by bean, the bag gets full.
I like it. You have an acronym, is that the right term for it? RPM in the book, which yes. seems to fit perfectly with this.
Yes, RPM. Rise, P, meditate. And so if you can just have that in your awareness every day, we know that one of the first things you're going to do when you wake up is pee. So if you say, okay, I'm going to get that one done. And if you know that the next thing after that, you're going to meditate, because we need to ritualize it. When we ritualize things, they have transformational power. When we just do them randomly, even if we say, I'm going to meditate at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock never comes. The phone rings. Suddenly something else happens. The dog needs attention. All these things can pull us. But if we ritualize it, just like everyone today woke up and brushed their teeth. They didn't say, oh, it's 6 a.m. I think I'll brush.
Or I've got a busy meeting later today. I'll skip brushing my teeth for today.
Right. Exactly. And if we think about it, so many of those rituals we've also wedded to other rituals. Like I brush and step into the shower. Mm-hmm. I've been doing those two, 25 years. They're the same thing for me. And so we all have rituals that we've linked together that we do in tandem with each other. And if we can make meditation one of those and push it to the very, very front of our morning ablution ritual train, mm-hmm. then that's going to be the trajectory to every conversation that we have.
At the end of this conversation, we'll do a short meditation. But can you suggest for people now, when they're getting longer than their 16, their 32, their minute, do they keep doing that practice, or for the purposes of destressifying, is there something else that they should do?
The reason that I wrote Secrets of Meditation and the reason that I wrote Destressifying was to give people so many different options. And some people want rigidity, so I apologize to those people. But I believe everyone's got a different access point. Mm-hmm. Some people want it to be very, very spiritual. Some people want it to be very, very practical. Other people want it to be physiologically, scientifically proven. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that our breath is the tool that we have in every single moment. So even whether it's practicing 16 seconds, there are so many other breathing techniques. I touch on about 20 of them in the book, but I can give you, 2 examples right now that everyone can practice as well. And I think this can also be a very good sleep aid. I call this quiet continuous breathing. Mm-hmm. And it's breathing through your nostrils so quietly that you can't even hear it. And so let's just try that right now. Just breathing in and out and watching that breath so quietly that it makes no sound whatsoever. We don't hear your lungs. We don't hear your nostrils. It's just in and out. And then if you close your eyes and sort of like now make sure there's no space between the inhale and your exhale. The inhale actually flows into the exhale, which flows into the next inhale, which flows into the next exhale. And there's no sound between them. Think of it as a ribbon of breathing, almost an infinity sign. And the breath just moves, unstopping and silently. And so that's one easy technique. You can open your eyes now. How does that feel?
That's fun.
It's fun. That's so softening that if you have trouble sleeping at night, mm-hmm. I suggest practice that. Do that for about 20 seconds and you'll be out cold. Because just by following that ribbon of breath, there's no break in the action. So there's no past, there's no future. It really keeps you in the present moment. And the fact that it's so quiet forces you mm-hmm. to really notch it down and to amp it down.
What is that doing to our cortisol levels when we're doing that?
That is slowing everything down. And when your body gives, just like when your body says, saber-tooth tiger, or saber-tooth tiger on the phone, or that person just offended me, or that person, is bothering me in some way, this sends the opposite message. This sends the message, all is well. This sends the message, you are so safe and so calm right now. Let's suppress cortisol, adrenaline, and glucagon. Let's elevate your growth hormone. Let's elevate your sex hormone. Let's elevate your immune system. So it has the exact opposite impact that experiencing fight-flight does on us. We call that a state of restful awareness because you're very, very alert in that moment. But you are totally resting. And that's really what meditation can do to us if we practice it proactively in every single moment. You never get overwhelmed. The world comes at you in slow motion. Right now, you're coming at me in slow motion. Everything is slow motion. So that way we will be less reactive because things come at us and we go, oh, I was going to react to that, but I think I'll put that one back.
That car that just cut me off, rather than using the monodigital response, I realized they're having a rough day and they really do care and love me and need to get someplace. And I send you many, many blessings on your way.
And what I often do in that moment is go, that really, really bothered me. I must really bother people when I cut them off.
So on talking about needs and talking about meditating, one of the big themes that keeps coming up on the show, and everything comes in clusters, and one of the absolute high-level, top-level clusters is self-love. And so I'm wondering how we can use something like this to really cultivate, turn up that flame of self-love, because I believe if we're flying high with love for ourselves, then chances are our reactions with others are going to be coming more from that loving kindness place as well.
Absolutely. We know that when we're feeling less than, we get irritated a lot more easily and a lot more quickly.
What are you talking about?
And we start to find fault with almost everything around us. But we also know that when our heart is full, or when we're feeling really, really more than, it's like, wait, I just got that job. I just nailed that. I just said the perfect thing in the perfect moment. I'm in the zone. When we're doing that, we have the exact opposite experience. And we never find fault with someone. When I'm like feeling so full, it doesn't bother me that you're wearing the shirt that I was wearing 2 days ago, or that you overhearing the joke I told. Suddenly it's like, oh, isn't that great? They're telling my joke. And so suddenly there's a really big shift, and it's a whole perspective shift on existence, on reality. And I believe that meditation, awareness training, when I'm working with the military or when I'm working in law enforcement, I work with this organization called Blue Courage. They're sponsored by the Department of Justice, and they're helping law enforcement right now sort of take their lives to the next level. Their goal is to restore the nobility of policing. And we know just a couple of stats.
I think that's really, really cool, because I have friends who are officers, and they need to be able to have that pause to make the best decisions, the best choices, both for lives, but also to react properly and not overreact. And they're surrounded by so much negativity. It seems doubly important.
It does. And, law enforcement is the highest suicide rate of any profession in this country. The average lifespan, life expectancy, beyond date of retirement is 5 years. Wow. And these aren't guys retiring at 70. They're retiring at 45, 50. And their children are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than any other children. So if we can help these people connect to the stillness and silence that rests within, these are people waking up every single morning and protecting people they don't even like. So this isn't about just like judging people you don't like. This is putting your life on the line every day for people you don't necessarily like. So that's why we see so much of them reconnecting to the community. They need to be part of the community, part of the people
Makes
that
sense.
They protect and serve. But when I started teaching members of law enforcement, I never uttered the word meditation, because I think for them, why would they care? And it sounds a little kooky, and was that going to make me slower on the draw? But when we refer to it as awareness training, and so Blue Courage Awareness Training, I created that acronym, which is BCAT, which sounds very, very police officer-y. But we can view this is awareness of ourselves, awareness of the environment around us, awareness of people around us. And if we can just become a little more aware of ourselves and quiet down, then those voices that say you can't do that, or those voices that say you're not good enough, those voices that have said you'll never amount to this or you'll never amount to anything, those voices dissipate. They're gone. And instead what replaces that is sort of just a strength that comes from within. It's not an intellectual conversation where we say to ourselves, I'm stronger today, or I'm better today. It's something that comes, it's in you, it's in me, it's in 8 billion beings on the planet. It's beneath our clothes, it's beneath our flesh. It's deeper, deeper still. It truly is that soul or spirit or essence, that oneness, whatever you want to call it, collective soul. There's a million different words for it, but it exists. And it has existed always through time. And so if we can get to that space, as someone, experiencing NDEs, you were there as well. You were in that space. And so everybody can get there. Everyone has it. We just have to quiet all that noise. It's a lot of noise out here, and more noise. There's more ways for us to confuse ourselves and to get messages, and so many talking heads telling us what's right and how come you're not wearing the newest style or fashion or doing this thing or buying this thing or acting this way.
So a completely different question I've got to ask before we start to wrap this up. Did you really trade your bicycle for a Volvo?
That Volvo's in my driveway right now. That Volvo is over 20 years old, and it's in my driveway. So the answer is yes. And I'm a big fan of Volvo. I should do a Volvo commercial. One of those people has the eternal Volvo. I did. And I think, we're all going to make choices in our life that, hopefully 20 years, I'm ready to drive that Volvo off a cliff, not with me inside it, and move on. But I think that we transform the world by transforming ourselves. Mm-hmm. And in an age where everything is coming at us and we want to help all these things outside of us, we sometimes get misguided that the way to do that is somehow to get on a plane and travel 20,000 miles, all the while being rude to the person we live with, or being, not paying attention to someone else that we're close to that's having a challenge. And so I believe we need to think globally and act locally. And I mean locally right down into our own hearts. And if we can just allow that and love that, then our lives will continue to blossom and bloom, and the power of our ripple will then extend to those places around the world. So I'd like to lead us in a metta meditation, a loving kindness meditation that everyone can do. And this doesn't make you soft. Mm-hmm. That's always the first question that macho people or members of the military say. Is this going to make me slower on the draw? Or is this going to make me a slacker or a stoner? It's like, no, this makes you more powerful and more expansive and ready to take on the world even at higher levels. So if you'll indulge me, I'll just guide us through a metta meditation.
Beautiful. And then I'll have just a couple wrap-up questions. I mention that now because at the end, I'm going to be really soft and really, I can see it coming.
You can ask me any question now before we dive in.
Let's do that. So the first one is going along loving kindness. I just mentioned it at the beginning, so we can just touch on it real briefly. People like TSA, if you're in a place where you have more space in your own heart, I think you're naturally going to have more space for everybody else around you. And then what? Jump into your 16 seconds?
Well, I travel a lot. I'm in airports 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I'm always in the the pre-line. So because I've traveled so much, I'm on every single. I usually whisk right through. The last 5 times I've flown, I'm the randomly selected person who gets patted down.
In quotes there, randomly. Yep.
Right. And so the last time I was going through, and I was like, I have plenty of time, so I wasn't really freaking out. But so I walked through, and they go, "You've been randomly selected again." And I've got all this bling on that's setting off all the detectors and everything. I'm like, okay. And they're like, "Can you take all that off?" And I'm like, "No, I don't take any of this off. You can just pat me down and wave the wand." And so I go through the thing, and they go, "Oh, and now we have to go through all of your bags as well because you've been randomly selected to be the bag person." So I said to the TSA guy, I said, "I've been randomly selected 5 times in a row." I said, "What do you think that means?" He goes, "You should buy the Powerball ticket. You should buy the big lottery ticket." And so even a little humor in that moment just allowed me to, because I was, I wanted to bring me the president of TSA. I want Homeland Security here. I do not want to be randomly selected so consistently. And so just that little humor allowed me, I said, "You're great. You made my day today." You also gave me a good story to talk about pattern interrupts. Mm-hmm. So if any time we can introduce pattern interrupts, so if there's a planning meeting, everyone call a timeout, take 5 seconds, 5 minutes, and everyone just go to the bathroom, take a walk, breathe, get on the phones, and then come back in. It's now been proven scientifically that even if you're in the movies and you're going, "Oh, who's that actor? What's his name? He was in that thing." And then suddenly someone gives you that John Candy moment, like, "Hey, you want some popcorn?" Like, "Yeah, sure." "Oh, it's George Clooney." So we know that the pattern interrupt is going to suddenly bring us into the next moment with a little greater clarity and a little less compression. And that's the compression that forces us to turn stress into a negative response. So when you're on the TSA line, maybe this is your moment of awareness. This is your pattern interrupt. Say, I'm going to be flying on a plane and working and doing all sorts of stuff. I'm going to view this entire TSA experience as my pattern interrupt and just witness and observe all these other kooky people traveling, and look how they're packing their stuff and they're bringing out all their prescriptions in the Ziploc baggies, and everybody else is doing this. Oh, look who just got zapped for a special random check, all those things. And if we can view that as like, oh, sweet pattern interrupt, whether it's 3 minutes or 35 minutes, that will give you a little bit of break. So when you get to the agent or the gate agent, you can be a little more relaxed. You won't be so freaking out. Also, everybody needs to just plan a little bit better and get to the airport about a half hour earlier than you think you need to be there.
And send love to those TSA agents because they need it just as much as us,
Absolutely.
particularly with what they have to do.
Oh, yeah, sure. Imagine the customer service person that everyone hates. It's like merging customer service with dentists and putting them all in one category. And these are like the people that people either fear or have issues with.
So going from there, a question we like to ask before the end that we ask of all of our guests, which is what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
There are so many things that bring me woohoo kind of moments. I love spending time at the ocean. I live very, very close to the ocean, so I try to go to the beach at least every day. I love my dog. Actually, I'm her human, but Peaches.
What kind of dog?
Her name is Peaches the Buddha Princess. She is a Morkie, a mindful Morkie. She's an LA rescue. Here's a time from a little ad, adopt your next pet. And she meditates with me every morning. She brings me such joy. She teaches in every moment, resist nothing, and you will receive unconditional love. So that's a reminder that I can always benefit from, and I try to share that with as many people. She's got more than 3,000 friends on Facebook. So please go to Facebook and like Peaches, the Buddha Princess. And so that brings me great joy. It brings me such great joy. One of the important things for me is I want to move the needle. I want to, when people say to me, you know what, I was experiencing some real sadness, and this technique has now allowed me to be a little calmer, to get through a divorce, to get through a diagnosis, to be a little stronger. That makes me so happy because I'm not a healer. I'm just a teacher who teaches people how to awaken their own inner healer. That's what I do. I point. I just point over there, and if you're willing to go there and follow a couple of things, you can find it for yourself. So that brings me great, great joy. I love nature. I love being in nature, walking in nature, and I love music.
What kind?
All kinds. I love musicians that meditate. So I love Ariana Grande, and I love James Hetfield of Metallica. And everything in between. I know that's quite a diverse range, but I love people who are living, walking their talk, and really living what they say. And authenticity is not so popular. So authenticity, when I find it, really uplifts my spirit.
Woo!
Woo! I also love chocolate. Chocolate makes me smile all the time. And I even teach a lot of people chocolate tasting meditations.
Oh, forgive me. I've got to ask. What in the world is a chocolate tasting meditation?
So you know how you use a mantra or following your breath as the object of your attention? So in a chocolate tasting meditation, you use chocolate. You get a nice fine truffle. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's dusted a little bit with 80% cacao dust on top of it. And you close your eyes and you just nibble on this. You smell it. You connect to it. It fully brings you into the moment. You put it in your mouth, and as Lao Tzu would say, do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Do you have the patience to wait until the right action arises by itself? And so this is where people who normally bite their Tic Tacs and chew them up very quickly, they nibble on the chocolate and they just allow it to melt in their mouth. So you can feel the texture change, the flavoring change, the aromas change. And it takes between 5 and 7 minutes. Normally you'd say, just pop it in your mouth and chew it in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. You can actually make a whole experience out of a chocolate tasting meditation.
True chocolate bliss. All right. So where can people go? And thank you for sharing that. Where can people go to find out more and to find your books?
You can go to davidji.com, davidji.com, and you can join the Sweet Spot Meditation community. It's free. It just requires your email. You can always unsubscribe also, and I'll never sell your name or barter it or exchange it with anybody else. If you just go there, you have access to over 300 free guided meditations, tools, tips, and techniques, a few free chapters from Destressifying. It's a community. We're over 100,000 strong right now. And I would suggest that people go there and just check it out. We have everything from 30-second meditations to 1 hour long meditations. And some have music, some have no music, some have breathing, all sorts of different types of things. But you can get my books and all my CDs on Amazon. Everything's on iTunes. Spotify, Pandora, everywhere, every place where music and books are shared, streamed, or sold.
Fantastic. And if you didn't catch all of that, just go to inspirenationshow.com. We'll have the links to get you over to Davidji's sites and to get you every place that you need to be. So I have just one wrap-up question here, but before I do that, I guess this means kind of two. You mentioned something real briefly at the end of the book that seems really near and dear to your heart. You say that we have an obligation to nurture and protect all sentient beings on the planet, and this includes animals.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to share?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to even talk about that. Yes, we have dominion over all the animals on the planet. We can make any species go extinct like that. We've done it fairly effectively. And so we should just pay attention. It all comes back to awareness. If you're going to eat animals, then be aware that you're eating animals, not a little nugget that's been deep fried. When we have the opportunity to either let's bring in an apartment complex, and then suddenly all the coyotes are displaced, we know that, we know the power of our ripple. We know that the oceans are being destroyed by us. We know the air, at one point was really being destroyed by us. We must learn to coexist with each other, but it's not just with the person who lives in your house, but it's with all beings that are out there. Part of being human and part of our humanity is having that understanding that everybody else also has the right to be on this planet. We didn't get, Deepak Chopra often says that if bees or mosquitoes were suddenly extinguished across the planet, within a couple of days, the planet would turn on itself. We would upset the entire cycle of animals really feeding on each other and working through that process. But if we eliminated humans on the planet, within 3 days, it would be the most thriving planet in the world. So we have to just be aware of our footprint. We have to be aware. And I'm not saying, you should become a vegan and you should drive a Prius. Everybody's got to make their own personal decision. Mm-hmm. But if we're at least aware when we're making those decisions, we'll probably make more conscious choices. And what we flow out into the world will obviously flow back into our hearts. And, we're just conduits. We're just conduits for everything to flow into us and then flow back out. So what are we doing with that after it comes into us? So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Certainly, and a mighty woohoo! So, and you may have just said it, but any last words of wisdom before we dive into a meditation?
Yes, we transform the world by transforming ourselves. So before we start looking out there to what we can do, in a given moment, let's be kind to ourselves. Be kind to your heart. Forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. All compassion and forgiveness starts with self-compassion and self-forgiveness. And then widen the circle a little bit. Who you're living with. Then widen the circle a little bit more. Who are you working with and who are you connecting with on a daily basis? And that's the power of your ripple. And so let's put some attention on that. Let's start really. If there's to be peace in the world, there needs to be peace in the heart. And so kindness does matter. Here I always wear this bracelet for...
Kindness matters.
It's for peace. There it is. Kindness matters. So we know that it matters. We know that we can deliver very, very devastating news in a kind way, mm-hmm. and that will at least be how we would want to be treated as well. So yes, we transform the world by transforming ourselves. Remember the power of your ripple. And we can always move from where we are to where we'd like to be. We're never stuck. Our best version is waiting out there for us to evolve into it.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So then, whatever you feel called to guide us in would be, I want to say the word, I guess it's from the chocolate, delicious.
Okay, so one of the keys, I think the most important aspect of all meditation is that you're comfortable. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to pretzel your body up or sit in full lotus or utpluti or any of that stuff. Comfort, comfort, comfort. And so let's get as comfortable as possible. And let's just look around, a little awareness. We might want to look around our space, drink it all in. And together, let's take a long, slow, deep breath in through our nose. And we breathe through our nose because the breath goes deeper, not because it's any spiritual meaning. And just let that breath go. And now allow your eyelids to gently float closed. And continue to follow your breath in and out. Feel it flow into you. And just watch it. Just witness it. Just observe it as it moves. And now with your next inhale, take a long, slow, deep breath in of the unconditional loving kindness of the universe and feel it move into your heart. And as you let it go, release it and have it radiate out to all of your loved ones. And with your next breath in, take a long, slow, deep breath in of that unconditional loving kindness, metta, sweet metta. Feel it fill your heart. And now radiate it out to all of your friends. And now let's do that one more time. Long, slow, deep breath in of metta, loving kindness. Feel it fill you. And radiate it out to all of your acquaintances, people whose names you don't even know. At this point, you're just a conduit of love. It's just coming into you and flowing out of you, filling your heart and then flowing right back out. And with your next breath, take a long, slow, deep breath in of that unconditional loving kindness and now radiate it out to anyone you know who's suffering, any suffering being on the planet. Let's do that again. Feel it fill your heart. Feel your heart expand. It's so filled right now. And then flow it out one more time to anyone who's suffering. Let it wash over them. Let that love bathe them. And now take a long, slow, deep breath in of that metta. Feel it fill your heart. You've got so much to share. Let's radiate it out to someone with whom you have a grievance in this moment. Just radiate unconditional loving kindness out to them. And with your next breath, feel it fill your heart. And now send it out to all the sentient beings on the planet. All the 8 billion people, all the animals. Let it ripple through all aspects of sweet Mother Earth. And again, take a long, slow, deep breath in. Feel it fill your heart. And now send it to every corner of the galaxy. Feel that love flowing to every single nook and cranny, every crevice of the galaxy. And now take a long, slow, deep breath in and pull that love from every single corner of the cosmos. Feel it surge into your heart and now allow it to ripple through every cell in your body. And just sit with that and breathe and feel the rippling of divine love floating through you. And now place one hand on your heart. Feel that spark. And that will be the starting point, the touchstone for how you ripple yourself out into the world for the rest of the day. And when it feels comfortable, you can slowly open your eyes, breathe normally. And we have just been conduits of the universe's unconditional loving kindness.
Woohoo!
How's that feel?
That feels fantastic.
That's great.
That feels fantastic.
You can do that every morning to start your day. You can do it in 1 minute. You can do it in 20 minutes, whatever feels right. But that's to do that at least once a day puts everything in perspective.
I think it does, and I think it changes how you look at everybody around you after you've just been sending them love.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm glad we asked the questions beforehand because I knew this would happen.
Thank you so much, Michael. What a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. And, keep shining, and I'll do my best from my end as well.
It goes both ways. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, check out Destressifying and begin Destressifying, even if you've got just 16 seconds. And shine bright. Woohoo!
Nice.
Thank you. This was beautiful.
Thank you.
thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!